Hey y'all, it is October the 1st, 2019, and I'd like to thank everybody out there for joining me and know that I appreciate you and know that I want you up in that comment section. Go ahead and tell me what it is I need to know. Y'all, we're going to dive down a little bit further, as promised, into that whole Parkland thing. Right now it's the anniversary of that whole Las Vegas shooting. Where it is, that was not what you thought it was. Of course, a lot of people out there know that it had a lot to do with Saudi Arabia and some sort of civil war that they be up in. All right, a gun deal went terribly wrong. All right, but we're conspiracy theorists out there. We're wilding out, y'all. We're gonna wild out a little bit more. I wanted to go over some of that breaking news. All right, because no, we're not gonna let it go. All right, we're gonna do what the news has failed to do over and over. And before we dive into it, I'd like to say I appreciate everybody out there for their theories. God bless you. You deserve to have theories, especially up in America, because guess what? That's what we're all about. All right, you can have whatever theory you want, and I appreciate you. I appreciate the advice I get from every angle. All right, so like I said, be up there in the comments section, and I appreciate you. But we're gonna dive into something I want to stress real quick. You're seeing the headline. It says Scott Israel. That was a typo. What they meant to say is Scotty Israel should be reinstated as Broward sheriff. All right, if you know anything about the situation, you are either laughing or puking your guts out right now. I'm choosing the latter. Scotty Israel should be reinstated as Broward sheriff. Like I said, and I said it a million times, probably, not in 1 million years will that ever happen, period. And I don't care if you are a gun-grabbing type of person and you want everybody, every lawful citizen in America to be disarmed. That really doesn't matter. You still don't even want Scotty Israel to be a sheriff in Broward County, right? Simply because it's bad PR. Simply because he has a horribly guilty-looking face. It's covered up by that play button right there. All right, he's bad for you either way. Either way, you can't be so dumb as to want Scotty Israel to be reinstated as Broward Sheriff. Florida Senate Special Master recommends. Who's this special master? You might be wondering if you haven't seen this before. We're going to talk about it in a second. But I just want to stress, all right? A lot of people have a lot of theories. And some people's theories is everything's 100% hoax, and everybody's so smart that they're coordinating everything, and they're all synced up, and they're all just working together. I doubt it. It's like a gang of cats, and you're trying to hurt them. It's not going to work, all right? They're all going to say contradicting things. They're all going to say stupid things. But here's the thing about it. You can't be so dumb. Like I said before, you cannot be so dumb. It is impossible, all right? So that being said, there's not one person. There's not one person in the world, almost to include Scotty Israel's questionable-looking wife. Now, the thing is, there's not one person who's so dumb that they would even stick their necks out for Scotty Israel right now. You can't be that dumb. You cannot be that dumb. I don't care what your agenda is, all right? See, that by reason of deduction, that only leaves one possibility, is that you are guilty. I don't know of what. I don't know of what yet, but you are certainly guilty of something, all right? And you need to be investigated. I'm talking about quick, fast, and hurry. You need to be investigated like today, all right? Forever, ever. Sticking your neck out for Scotty Israel, all right? Nobody in the world has that low of an IQ. So let's read this right here. Suspended Broward Sheriff Scotty Israel should get his job back. A special investigator for the Florida Senate recommended in a stunning, that's right, stunning, there's a lot of words for it, a stunning rebuke of Governor Ron DeSantis. And like I said, Ron DeSantis just seems to say the right things. According to me, all right, that's just my opinion. He seems to say all the right things. All right, DeSantis failed to prove the allegations of neglect of duty and incompetence he leveled against the veteran lawman, Dudley Goodlett. All right, Go ahead and remember that name. And it's hard to find it because most of these articles ain't even going to say it. They're just going to say some special master came down from on high to tell us that, oh, no, Scotty Israel is not only innocent, but he deserves to be the sheriff. And, oh, yeah, he's keeping everybody safe. Dudley Goodlatte, a lawyer and former state legislator charged with investigating the Israel case, wrote in a report released Wednesday. We're not going to go further into this garbage, all right? Absolute hot, wet garbage. We're just not going to go further into it. You know what you need to know. Dudley Goodlatte seems to believe, here he is right here. All right, if you've never seen him before, looking about as guilty as the day is long. All right, all sort of guilty. I don't know what it is. You might be a philanthropist. You might be a volunteer. Oh, yeah, that surprises me. I'm real surprised by that. All right, you might be holding yourself up in high esteem. All right, but you're guilty as in nobody's business. I'm here to tell you. All right, go ahead and investigate it. I'm not in police. I can't come get you. All right, and I'm not gonna get you. I'm not threatening you with anything. I'm just saying justice is gonna befall all of us at a certain point in our lives. And you got it coming. You got it coming in a legal and lawful way, Mr. Goodlatte. All right, you're sticking your neck out just like some other sheriffs in Florida have stuck their dirty little necks out for Scotty Israel. All right, it's painfully obvious. Now, with that being said, we're gonna go with something that's just a little bit more recent. All right, we got, and it's, a few of these articles that detail a Mr. Russell Perna. Now, if you're familiar with Parkland, you're familiar with Broward Sheriff's Office, you probably already know who Russell Perna is. In case you don't know, it's this guy, all right? And mind you, if you even pop up, if your face pops up in Broward Sheriff's Office or has something to do with Parkland, I'm looking at you all suspect, right? I'm looking at you through my side eye. I'm really, I got you in my periphery, and yeah, you look suspect. And I don't care if you're Russell Perna or anybody else. You could be Andrew Pollock. You could be anybody. You could be Ron DeSantis. I'm going to look at you sideways, and I want to know what you got to say. I really do. That's not to say that you might be something. You might be a player in this game and you might be on my side of things, in which I want justice for every last person who's faking and frauding and hoaxing out there and has all sort of tomfoolery and think they're going to pull it over on the American public. No, you're not. Not even for a second. You haven't. Whoever is pulling these puppet strings, guess what? You're not getting away with anything. All right. So this is Russell Perna. And mind you, the first time I seen him, I looked at him all suspect, just like everybody else. All right. But I'm not going to deny when a person says exactly what I want them to say. I'm not going to deny that. In fact, I'm going to give them credit for that. So, Russell Perna, before we start, thank you. Thank you very much, and God bless you for this article. We're going to read through it about as quick as we can. This is 2 days ago. Like I said, it's breaking news. All right, and Russell Perna is about to say every last thing that I would want him to say. Every last thing. All right, so let's run through it. When embattled Broward County, Florida Sheriff Scott Israel was removed from office in January 2019 by new Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, God bless him, Israel claimed that the decision was partisan, that it had nothing to do with his deputy's disastrous performance. And it was disastrous. Everything about this was disastrous. Okay, the disastrous performance during 2 deadly mass shootings. And that he provided amazing, and that's a quote, amazing, and I'll never forget that, amazing leadership to the Broward County Sheriff's Office. Now, the Florida Senate Special Master, you might remember him as a Dudley Goodlatte, but they're not going to mention, has recommended that Scott Israel to be reinstated, even though the Supreme Court of Florida upheld the governor's decision to remove him about as quick and fast and in a hurry as you could think of. Remove him in the first place. Oh, yeah. But I was the executive officer at BSO, and this is Russell Perna. He wrote this whole article. He said, and Scott Israel is lying. That's one complete sentence right there. He said, Scott Israel is lying. He said, he is a liar. He neglected police work in favor of politics. And oh, yeah, you might have seen that before. Instead of being a sheriff, he was out there being a politician. All right, so what we're about to run through is a case endpoint. It's checkmate. Scott Israel needs to be tried for something. All right, instead of trying to get his job back so desperately, like the delusional individual he is, he needs to get tried for something. Either that, or we need to start making laws against such sort of incompetence. And I say incompetence, and that's putting it nicely. The bloody massacre of Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport, you might remember in 2017, and the Parkland High School in 2018 were the most visible consequences. These are the words of Russell Perna. All right, but another insidious effect was Sheriff Israel's willingness to shatter the morale of the BSO by appointing political cronies, and we've covered some of these cronies. Oh, we've covered them. All right, we're not going to forget them either. To key posts, including radicals. Oh yeah, we've mentioned that radicals linked with Islamist extremism. Now, before we go any further, the biggest victims of Islamic extremism are Muslims. All right, that's been proven. So the thing is, I'm looking out for my Muslim friends and buddies out there. Yeah, it's Islamic extremists that are your worst enemy, and I think you already know that. I began my law enforcement career serving with the New York City Police Department. That's Russell Perna. He said, when Rudy Giuliani was the mayor. Under Giuliani, the direction of law enforcement was set by elected officials, but police policies and procedures were left to experienced non-political leaders of the police department. That seems like it makes sense, right? That, I understood, was how a successful law enforcement agency should function. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I'm in agreement with that. That's not what I observed while serving as BSO's executive officer. I mean, he was high up in there. He said, instead, I saw politics permeate every layer of the agency until it completely, utterly, and that's my word, delegitimized what was once the pride of South Florida's law enforcement. Instead of the BSO functioning as a performance-directed institution, it acted more like a political campaign. All right. Sheriff Israel surrounded himself with well-connected incompetents who were unconcerned with the daily threats of crime. And trust me, it goes on in South Florida. You need to be concerned about it. The daily threats of crime, disorder, and terrorism. Sheriff Israel dared not to fire them even when they made the most egregious of mistakes, and they just kept making those egregious mistakes day after day after day. To do so would have harmed his political ambitions, and wouldn't that be quite unfortunate? Upon taking office in 2013, Sheriff Israel appointed as his chief of staff Lisa Castillo. Let's talk a little bit about her. She had no prior law enforcement experience, buddy. In fact, she had no major work achievements in any previous position at all, and that's a period at the end of it. Castillo served for a brief period as an intern with Mayor Ed Koch's administration in New York City. From there, she had short stints in mid-level positions in local government. Oh, that's about it. Despite her limited qualifications, the new sheriff apparently believed Castillo was qualified to serve on a very high level in the agency with a $900 million budget. Yeah, that's big numbers. And 6,000 employees, that's big numbers that they're talking about, in a county of approximately 1.9 million residents. However, Castillo brought something more valuable to Israel, much more valuable than education, experience, and competence. She brought political influence. That might remind you of some people out there. Castillo was married to City Commissioner Angelo Castillo, a name worth remembering, of Pembroke Pines, an important voting constituency in Broward County. Pembroke Pines is also the location of infamous Darul Uloom, and you might not remember that silly name, but we've covered Darul Uloom, that Darul Uloom mosque. Yeah, we covered that. We got a video of that. That video ain't going nowhere, by the way. And so this particular mosque is affiliated with the hardline South Asian Deobandi movement. The mosque's Imam Shafayat Muhammad was involved in a South African backer of Osama bin Laden, and I know I don't believe that Osama bin Laden story for a second, y'all. All right, but he was involved with a backer of Osama bin Laden. Muhammad has been thrown off several Florida nonprofit boards because of his bigoted statements about homosexuals. Here's the thing: live and let live. We live in America. I don't know about y'all, but I don't have no desire to throw people off roofs or cut nobody's heads off. All right. You go to the Middle East, and some places that is their exact desire. The most notorious example of Muhammad's 2005 article is Tsunami Wrath of God, in which he claimed that homosexuality caused the 2004 Indonesian tsunami. He also called Christians and Jews perverted transgressors. And that's a quote. Worse, the mosque had counted among its members several future terrorists, including dirty bomber Jose Padilla. This is Russell de Perna just laying it out there in black and white. He said none of this stopped Sheriff Israel from establishing deep ties with Darul Uloom, as we seen quite clearly on camera. No, that wasn't a deep fake. At the urging of Lisa Castillo, that's the person who urged it. Miss Lisa Castillo. In August 2014, Israel appointed Nizar Hamzy, and yeah, we talked about this fool. This fool done went, he went underground. I haven't even seen him. I haven't seen him since. He's been laying real low for a couple of years. Nizar Hamzy is a full-time deputy. Hamzy was a regular attendee of Darul Uloom, as you might imagine. When he was hired, he was also the regional operations director of the Florida chapter of the Council on American Relations, the Relations Care Florida, and had previously been Care Florida's executive director until he resigned and started laying low. Everybody, CARE has a long history of coordination with Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. You might love both those groups. All right, you might love them. People in America don't really care for them. In 2009, the FBI cut off all collaboration with CARE after federal prosecutors named the Islamic group as an unindicted co-conspirator in the largest terrorism financing case in U.S. history. That's right, the largest one. And in 2014, the United Arab Emirates designated CARE as a terrorist organization. They ain't even in America, y'all. And they looked at this group one time and called it a terrorist group. All right. Hamzy's colleagues at CARE Florida are deeply alarming. Trust me, there's more than a handful of them that are deeply alarming. All right. CARE Florida Communications Director Wilfredo Amir Ruiz, being just one of them, regularly promotes anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. All right. Oh, but he's not being called out by everybody and their mom for being a conspiracy theorist right now. Okay, including canards about Jewish scripture popularized by the Nazis. You might notice there's an Islamic Nazi connection. Yeah, Hitler was very fond of that. CARE Florida Director Hassan Shabli, meanwhile, has endorsed a Deobandi, whatever that's called, Deobandi organization that advocates the mass murder of Ahmadiyas, a peaceful Muslim sect despised by the Islamists. Like I said, there's very peaceful Muslim sects, and they're actually despised by these Islamic extremists. The decision to hire the extremist-linked Hamzy as a deputy was even more scandalous because he failed almost every step, almost every one of the vetting process for the job. He failed in almost every way. During his initial pre-employment interview in May 2013, 3 high-ranking BSO commanders, and I seen it in black and white, Major David Holmes, Major Michael DiMaggio, and Major Dungy Peterson all agreed not to recommend Hamzy. Not to. All right. They all signed their name on it and said, nope, we don't like any of this. But Lisa Castillo advised the sheriff to overrule, and that's what he did, overrule his commanders and to hire Hamzy as a BSO deputy anyway, all right, against the advice of seasoned veterans. Hamzy continued his position at CARE Florida, despite the clear conflict of interest, quite a clear conflict. Shortly afterwards, Scott Israel attended Darul Uloom, as we've seen quite clearly on videotape, along with Hamzy, telling the congregation that it's important to surround yourself with like-minded people. courting Broward's growing Muslim voting population, in which we've described already. We've described them a number of times. Their growing Muslim voting population appeared to be a priority for both Israel and Miss Lisa Castillo. To no one's surprise, in May 2019, Angelo Castillo announced his candidacy for mayor of Pembroke Pines, and all sort of a power struggle and just aspirations of ultimate power over there in South Florida. Israel has tried to explain these events as an effort to reach out to a diverse audience. However, Castillo had a remarkably narrow idea of which audiences were considered diverse, right? When staff suggested that sheriff's office reach out to Jewish, which is the main constituency there, reach out to Jewish and Christian organizations to lecture on post 9/11 security issues, we were met with resistance. I don't know if that surprises y'all, from Sheriff Israel and his chief of staff, Ms. Castillo. All right. Meanwhile, at the suggestion of Castillo, Israel ordered members of his community, if you can even believe it or not, his community outreach unit to participate in prayer sessions at Darul Uloom on a regular basis. Like, that makes any sort of sense. The rank and file of the BSO, men and women dedicated to their calling, recognize that preventing crime and promoting law and order took a back seat to politics under the Scott Israel regime. All right, that I can guarantee. All the politicization of the agency and the incompetence of the command staff and the lack of training and experience in dealing with critical incidents created a fatally being the best word, fatally negative environment that consumed the entire agency. The hiring of Nazar Hamsi was only the worst example. It is hardly surprising that morale and training deteriorated. Oh yeah, deteriorated. Oh yeah, nobody was trained in order to stop no kind of mass shooting. And guess what? That's exactly what played out. So, okay, morale and training totally deteriorated, contributing to the disasters at Parkland and Fort Lauderdale. A wise man once said, experience is the hardest kind of teacher because you take the test first and the lesson second. Sheriff Israel, his chief of staff, Lisa Castillo, and BSO's command staff never learned that lesson. They chose not to learn that lesson. And, whether people believe it or not, a lot of lives were lost because of that. All right, directly because of that. They were willing to sacrifice the safety of Floridians in return for short-sighted political advantage. History will not be kind to Scotty, Israel. He will be remembered as the sheriff whose decisions failed the test of time and whose amazing, quote, amazing leadership inspired no one. All right. In fact, if it inspired anybody, it's you and me, and we're going to stand forever and ever against this sort of incompetence and sort of this political tomfoolery. And all this gun grabbing nonsense, which is what he was about since day one, since moment one, when he knew exactly what happened at Parkland, even before seeing all the videotapes. And in fact, he's up on podiums. This guy right here, he's up on podiums saying complete, utter falsehoods about a mass shooting. All right, absolutely provable falsehoods all over the place. You got a Dudley Goodlett and all their other little constituents sticking their neck out for Scotty Israel. You couldn't make yourself look more guilty if your hand was inside the cookie jar right now. All right, if you took pictures and selfies of you with your hand in the cookie jar, you couldn't even look more guilty. All right, Russell Perna, whether you like him or not, I'm not here to say. He said exactly what I wanted him to say. All right, and there's no taking that back. All right, justice is gonna be had for everybody, by God. That I can tell you. I won't have to lift a finger or do anything or say anything. I don't believe in offensive violence in any kind of way. I believe in the law taking care of what the law should go ahead and take care of. All right, by God, here in America. God bless America. I appreciate everybody out there. Go ahead and leave me some details and shout me out. Let me know what it is I should know up in this Parkland thing. No, we're not going to let it go. Not at all. It's October the 1st, 2019.